All right, welcome to video number two. Well, technically three, but we'll say two because the previous one was sort of a half. All right, so in this video, I want to talk about something I mentioned in the previous videos, which was how we had to do away with the animation framework in Unity. Now, don't let me make that sound as too terrible or glorious, depending on how you squint your eyes. We're still using the underpinnings. We're just not using the animator view, which lets you relate these nodes of, it's like a visual editor of relating animations and things, and it's really I'm not a fan. So I was actually very happy to do away with that. So we are using the underlying player, which lets us pull in a sequence of keyframes and play them over time. So some adaptations we've had to make, though, is rather than time, because the animations want to be naturally based on Unity's framework, they want to be based on time. But time is very difficult to relate when multiple animations when you want to choreograph them, when you want to sync them up. So for that, we actually want to work on a frame by frame basis. But time is smarter from a Unity perspective because it does away with frame rate. It's just time. So you can do whatever frame rate you like. You can have one animation being 30 frames per second. You can have another one being 15 or whatever, and it's just a matter of time. Well, that's great, but when you need two keyframes to line up perfectly, then you do care about frame rate and you do care about frames. So the negotiation with the creative side is that we will stick with 24 frames per second for all the animations, at least all the animations that are going to be controlled by the game engine. If it's a cinematic, it can be whatever you like because we're just playing a movie. That was the agreement. So given this contract, we now know 24 frames per second. Why 24? Well, that's just a cinematic kind of standard. So if you want to be fancy, so 24 and for animation, that is. So 24. And now that we know we have a consistent frame rate, we know that time can be consistent with number of frames. And so this gives us a lot of flexibility. We can now operate on a per frame basis. And so our animation, I don't want to say framework, but the layer that builds on top of Unity's underpinnings deals with frames rather than time. The time is still there, but we focus on frames. So for example, when talking about choreography, I think I kind of showed this in the first video, but the girl here, her name is Gooch. It's a nickname, but so she's idle, and she has her own animations. And this drawer is idle, which does nothing, and it has its own animations. The two are both waiting for some kind of an event to tell them what to do. So if I click, I can move her around. See, I raise her state to a walking state, and then she goes back to idle when that lowers back down to when the moving state lowers back down to 0. So to choreograph two animations, we need to be able to sync them up per frame. So for example, if I click on the drawer, she parks herself, and then the two choreograph. Now, right now, there is no animation to put the drawer back in. So actually, I think we do have it. Well, I'm playing this. Maybe I should not be going off script right now. Yep. All right. So anyway, where was I? Let me not get off topic. So the point is that the drawer has an animation, the girl has an animation. They need to choreograph perfectly by time and frame specifically frame, so that when forgive me, I'm going to play them, but you'll see that the position is not aligned, and that's because her position isn't parked. What we call parking, let me just move her around. Parking is when the player or the entity positions themselves to the position the animation is expecting to be choreographed in, right? So if I move her manually there, you'll see now the two are lined up-ish. I kind of eyeballed it, but you get the idea. So normally during gameplay, see now she's off. That's funny. Let me reload the scene. No, don't save. So normally during gameplay, if I try to click on the drawer from here, she moves herself into position, then the choreography begins. Okay, I'm getting off topic though, again, sorry. The point is that the two animations need to communicate together. And so what we have is sort of a choreography animation, which links to other animations. So the drawer has its own, she has her own, and this choreography animation, it tells the two how to communicate and sync up on time. So when we play it, it's actually it's actually delegating this time to frame. See, I'm sliding a time slider, which translates to a frame index, which then tells the two animations like an abstracted index that the two agree on, and then they can play together based on their alignment, right? So now the drawer doesn't actually begin animating until this moment. Where is it? Here, right? But you can see the girl started animating much earlier. So this choreography is impossible to do in Toon Boom out of the box, in my opinion. So this kind of tooling layer is really necessary when you want to have animations choreographed together in a reactive way. What do I mean by this? I mean, I don't want to be writing a infinite tree of if-then statements to say when or where some things should cause this to animate or what. No, instead, the drawer is aware of its job. The Gooch is aware of her job. There is an event mapping that takes place that says when hand is used on drawer, this is our event system, we'll talk about this in a later video, when hand is used on drawer, actually that doesn't happen yet. The first thing that happens is when she tries to interact with an item and she sees that she's too far from it, her instinct first is to walk. Ooh, that's because I messed up the animations. Her first instinct is to, there we go, is to walk close enough to it to park herself. Now she parks. Now the two take place. Okay, so yay. All right, I'm gonna walk that way. All right, so where was I? So she parks herself, then the event mapping says, oh, look, hand was used on drawer. When that happens, the drawer gets the signal, the hand gets the signal, and they say, oh, I'm supposed to play. Now, the hand doesn't know anything about the drawer. The drawer doesn't know anything about the hand. This is great. They're decoupled, yet they both get the same signal to play the same choreographed animation. So it works out really nice. Okay, so that's the animation framework sort of at a really high level. I could go deeper, but the short version is, let's see. So we have actual keyframe information that we get from Toon Boom Harmony. That we keep. That's very valuable. That's what was created by the designers, the artists, or the animators. So we keep that. We want that. That's valuable. That is, well, you don't know what I'm pointing at, but that's the thing that tells the assets how to move and how fast and when. So we wrap those within some kind of a controller that tells them how to behave, which essentially allows us to offset the starting point or delay the end or loop, or give it some kind of a bias. But then, so those are what we call animations in Unity. This is something we had to build ourselves. It's not a Unity animation. And then the choreography system composes those animations. So you can have as many of them as you like. In this case, we have two. One is the drawer and one is the gooch opening the drawer. So it's really nice because you can just drag assets into this relationship, and then when the event occurs, they just play. And it's beautiful. They're reusable. It's decoupled, so you can move these animations if it's applicable into another scene. For example, opening a drawer, we kind of standardize the height for these, generic drawer opening animations, so we can reuse this animation on another scene for a similar height drawer. And so it's really nice that it works out this way. So, all right, that's the animation. The takeaway here is this is built to be robust, reusable, flexible, so that we're not butting our heads on trying to do things that Unity or Toon Boom won't let us do. Instead, we have the flexibility to do whatever we want, and we save ourselves a lot of time because we can now reuse these animations rather than having to handcraft, one for each scene, which we do, but some animations are not as important, and so we can afford to recycle them. The very curated animations, we want to make sure that we're doing, unique every time. So yeah, this allows us to save time and effort where time and effort can be saved. All right. This has probably been very boring, but the next video, I'll actually walk around. You can actually see something. All right.